And next we have Mr. Dan Billingsley. Good evening, Mr. Billingsley.
Good evening, everyone. I don't want to talk too much about the specifics of last week because part of the reason why I came tonight is to gather information and have some discussions, hopefully with all of you about the specifics of what happened, and I have some specific questions I'd like to leave you with. But what I want to do tonight, as I've done before in a general sense, is kind of share with you some things about how things are perceived and how things might be interpreted from this side of the table. And there was a lot of discussion in the board comments last week that I'm kind of referring specifically to. And one of the things is that I want to just challenge you to kind of have a different point of view and really just give you some food for thought. So there was a lot of discussion last week about bullying, and one of the statements that was made is that a bully doesn't get to determine if the action is bullying. And indeed that's true. And what I want to submit to you is that a tyrant doesn't get to decide if an act is tyranny or not. And by definition, one of the first signs of tyranny is surely an assumption of power or authority that the person is not really supposed to have. And of course, tyranny is just a fancy word for bullying by a governing body. So I offer to you that in some of the analogies that are made by board members regarding parent-child relationships or school policy, it sort of implies a relationship of authority over the citizens that doesn't exist. You are here sitting in those seats as elected representatives, not as teachers, not as principals, and not as parents. So those analogies that are based on a parent-child relationship are completely irrelevant and out of place. And in fact, from this voter's perspective, imply a misunderstanding of your role when you make them. The Open Meetings Act, as it states in the introduction published by the legislation, was written specifically because public bodies are going to tend to, I don't have it, oh there it is. Dear citizen, the ideal of a democratic government is too often thwarted by bureaucratic secrecy and unresponsive officials. Citizens frequently find it difficult to discover what decisions are being made and what facts lie behind those decisions. That was written not by some kook wanting to recall board members. That was written by the Michigan State Legislature. The Open Meetings Act was enacted because bodies like this one tend to abuse their power. And I want to submit to you that to suggest that the board members sitting at this table are immune to that is to declare that you have succumbed to it, because all public bodies tend to abuse their power. And so I encourage you to think about that when you're making statements in board comments, making statements in response to audience communications or actions of the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening, Mr. Billingsley.